Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GridNet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Women in Motorsports. Joe San Diego, along with Daniele and Sarah from Racers, the girls behind the helmet. A big thank you to our Patreon subscribers calling the show, Mark and Robin, for keeping us on the air by investing through Patreon. You too can invest in the Grid Network through Patreon or buy me a coffee, a one-time contribution. Definitely appreciate the support as we're getting closer and closer to 500 subscribers. Very exciting. Dan, I still remember when we started this with less than 100 subscribers. It's been really fun to see this grow. And one of the drivers I know we talked quite a bit about, having too much this year, but very excited to hear she's back on the track. Vicky, Italian GT, what's the latest on her racing aspects?
Hi, Joe. Hi, everyone. I'm just back from Mugello. Last weekend was quite a big weekend for Italian championships. So it was Italian Formula 4, Italian GT, former regional European Championship, also final round of that season at Mugello. And one of the races was the Italian GT, as we mentioned, the sprint series, because Italian GT is divided in the sprint and the endurance series. And this year, for the first time in her career, Vicky Piria, former WSeries racer, she raced in the all-female championship, both in the inaugural season in 2019 and also in 2021. She's made the switch to GT cars, so it's quite a big step in the driver's career, because of course you're really used to racing in single seaters with that very specific driving style, and with high downforce and stuff. While GT is quite different, and also this year the sprint series was only 4 race weekends, so double headers, but only 4 race weekends. So not a lot of track time for Vicky to really learn a new whole set of skills, for GT cars. She had never driven a GT car before. She literally just had a single test day in a Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car before the season. And she is running with the Ukrainian team Tsunami RT. Initially, she was running with Francesca Linossi, another very talented female driver and 2-time Italian GT champion. So definitely an experienced racer that could have helped Vicky in her adaptation to GT racing. Then the plans changed a little bit for Francesca throughout the season. She contested the first 2 rounds at Monza and in Misano, and then she switched from the sprint series to the endurance series. In the main GT3 Pro category, while Vicky was and Francesca were racing in the GT Cup category. So it's multi-class. We have GT3 cars, we have GT Cup cars, and we have GT4 cars, all racing together in the same grid, which is quite a big grid of more than 40 cars. So also traffic is very tricky, and so it really is a series where drivers are coming into GT cars are really learning a lot, because you also have to learn to manage the traffic and stuff like that. So with a new teammate at Imola for the third round of the season, Vicky had Gianmarco Levorato, quite a young driver, but quite experienced in the Porsche machinery, because he is also contesting the Porsche Carrera Cup championship in Italy, and is doing very well. He's among the front runners and battling for the title. So a driver that could really help Vicky to learn the car. And they did extremely well in Imola, because they missed out on a podium position for like 0.7 of a second in race 2. They were fourth, scoring the best position of their season. So that was another very good step forward for Vicky. And then, but Gianmarco could not join the team again for Mugello, because he had a clashing round with the Porsche Carrera Cup. So the team had to find another teammate for Vicky. And they found Vito Postiglione, who is another really experienced GT racer, multi-champion in national Italian championships. So another really driver that was willing to help Vicky to progress. And again, that was another good step for Vicky, because while she was not really happy about the free practice one with the setup, but one interesting thing that she told us, that being the only car that she has ever driven in GT, she really does not understand if if the car behaves in a certain way because the setup is not right, or because it's GT car compared to single seater car. So Vito Postiglione was really helpful in that, and so they kind of switched the whole setup for free practice 2, and they were straight into P2, in second position in second practice. In Q1, Vito was in P2 again, while Vicky unfortunately had a red flag straight into her good lap on new tires. So that was not really lucky for Vicky, but she was still P11. And in a very big field, as I mentioned, and with all really close together, in thousands of a second between each cars. So the races were quite promising for them. In race 1, they had a really good race. Postiglione did the first stint. He managed to get into the lead. And then switched over to Vicky and midway through the race after the driver change. Vicky managed to retain first place, but unfortunately a safety car came in. So all the field was bunched up again, and then in the race start she dropped it down to third. But in the final laps, she still managed to get one position back, so she was second across the finish line. But really, unfortunately for them, they got an 8-second penalty for not respecting the minimum pit stop time. So that was quite a miscalculation for the team during the pit stop stages. That dropped them back to P6. So quite an unfortunate one, but Vicky was really happy, because still, regardless of the position, they are not really contesting for the championship title. It was all about learning for her. So really understanding that she was able to fight there at the top end of the field was very good news for her, regardless of the result. In race 2, it was a little bit more difficult, because, of course, starting from P11, they had quite a lot more positions to gain at the start. Vicky did the start. She was quite good. She's been really good and consistent in the starts this year. Of course, it's a rolling start. It's not standing start like she was used to in single seater. So she also had to learn that. But she did well and gained a couple of positions, settled in a good place, and then handed over to Vito Postiglione for the final stint. They were not really lucky, because at the beginning of his stint, he had a full course yellow, then a safety car, so the field was again bunched up together. He's very fast, so he had the chance to gain a couple of positions. And at the end, when in 3 minutes to go, they had another safety car, which was quite unfortunate, because he was really recovering well, and kind of halted his recovery. But on the very final lap, it was a last green lap for the end, and he managed to get another place. So they were third in class, which was the Vicky's first podium in the championship at her very final race of the season. So I would say she's finishing on a high, very learning oriented season, but starting, from midfield where she was at Monza. She also had an unfortunate accident, which was not her fault. But still, it kind of gets you on the wrong foot when you're starting a whole new adventure like this. But she did really, really well in every race, improved a lot, and now she told us interestingly that she found again the joy of racing after this season. So that's really good to hear coming into next season. And she said that she's definitely want to keep racing in GT and learning some more in GT racing in the coming season.
Very excited to see Vicky back on the track. GT racing, such a different discipline of racing compared to the Formula series of Formula 3 up to F1. All the different dynamics. Really interesting to hear about her experience, and of course the weekend just gaining laps, gained the experience in that new vehicle. Now we switch over to the stateside here in the United States, where Homestead-Miami hosted a huge NASCAR race weekend with all three of the National Series. And one of the big things, of course, Hailie Deegan, she was part of the Truck Series race. Overall, looked like she was going to have probably a really strong day. She qualified seventh, big improvement. And of course, she's coming off a great weekend at Kansas Speedway. However, then when it got to the racing, overall, still got a top 20 finish, but not exactly the results she wants, especially after 2 years in the Truck Series. 17th place, 1 lap down from the lap leader, so she didn't complete all the laps. However, the big news about Hailie Deegan, well, potentially about her future, came just yesterday, where it was announced that David Gillian Racing, the team she drives for currently, is switching from Ford to Toyota. Now, of course, Hailie Deegan's part of the Ford Motorsports program, so she's most definitely not going to be in that seat next year. And next year, DGR is actually going to change name to Tricon Racing. So one of the big things, new team in the Truck Series, new name. What's Hailie Deegan's future? A lot of people anticipate she's still going to end up over at the Xfinity Series in a Ford. Question is, what's it going to be? Is it going to be a Stewart Haas? Is it going to be a green light? It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Hailie Deegan. And of course, we can only anticipate an announcement will be coming up eventually soon. Now, of course, the other big story was over in the Xfinity Series, where Hailie's hoping to be at next year. Julia Landauer, she making her second NASCAR Xfinity Series start. Her first start was in New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Didn't go too well, unfortunately, due to contact with Justin Allgaier. This time, though, she qualified to get in. She started in 37th. There was more cars than starting positions. Only 38 will make the field, so she just got in the field and overall ran 196 laps out of 200 scheduled laps. So she came home with a 28th place finish. Overall, Daniel, I gotta say, when it comes to Julia, considering the challenges of first race, you didn't get that many laps due to an incident on the track, so you didn't get the experience. Then the second time to get all just about there, 196 out of 200, 4 laps short, still a good effort. I saw on her Twitter, she was pumped up, she was excited, she hit all the marks of gaining laps, finishing ahead of where she started. When it comes to a racer, especially when they're gaining experience, there's always going to be, I feel like that first race generally is a struggle. For that second race to go in a positive, how big of a boost is that in morale? And then just how much does a driver learn from just logging all those laps? Because not every track's the same.
Yeah, a massive amount, especially because Julia was also not racing for 1 year since the start of the actually almost 2 years since the start of the pandemic, when she was racing over here in Europe in Euro NASCAR. So she also had to go to get back into the rhythm of racing before also learning new tracks and learning new car, because it's just straight into the Xfinity car, which is not an easy one. So really, she showed good pace and good promising pace at the first race that she did, even though she didn't have that many laps because she was hit and spun around quite early in the race. So it was massively important for her to log laps and finish the race. The most important thing was really finishing the race for her. So that mission accomplished for Julia. and hopefully she can come back with a more consistent racing program for next year, because definitely she has the potential to climb the order a little bit in Xfinity.
Definitely the potential to run Xfinity. I think that'll be huge. Fans here in the stateside will be really excited to hear. And of course, where she used to race over in Euro NASCAR, one of the big news we heard, they're going to have an exhibition race on ice. Daniel, have you ever experienced anything like
Yeah,
that?
that's quite a news. Yes, they will have an exhibition race in Finland on ice. That's I mean the Euro NASCAR cars are big stock cars, very powerful, and you know it's already very difficult to drive on on a road course from what the drivers are telling us. I cannot imagine driving them on ice, so it's going to be really interesting to watch. They have the season finale this weekend in Grobnik in Croatia. So that's definitely one of the races that we will be following closely, because there's also a female trophy that was they had 5 female drivers this year, so the female trophy there was quite interesting to follow. But definitely the race in Finland on ice, I think it's a cool it's something different. It's cool since it's not part of the championship, as we understand. It's also fun to watch without risking too much of the championship points. And Euro NASCAR, it's really growing here, so it's important that they try different markets like Scandinavia, where potentially bringing in some drivers, and I think it's a good idea. They're trying different different approaches from classic motor racing series, and that's good sometimes.
I've seen from my days in Alaska racing on the ice, particularly the little legend cars, which we'll see in United States in the short tracks, street stock cars, a NASCAR car. That's going to be really interesting. I think we're definitely going to be following this news, and I think once we get closer to that weekend, potentially going to try to see how we could view this race, because I think it's going to be really exciting to see a bunch of NASCAR stock cars on the ice in Finland. That alone sounds like an exciting trip. Now, Daniel, of course, we all know over in Europe, there's still a lot of racing left. The season's coming towards the end. But some of the big things, of course, is some of the testing we're seeing, especially when it came to Italian Formula 4, and also some big news about potentially seeing what's going to happen with Sofia Flores.
Oh yes, as I mentioned, I was in Mugello for not only for Italian GT, but also for Italian Formula 4 that rounded out their season. It's one of the most competitive feeder series on the single-seater ladder in the world, I believe. Kimi Antonelli already on the contract with Mercedes, so big names there, all future Formula 1 drivers. And among them, there were 2 female drivers contesting the full season. One was Maya Veug, the the Belgian, Dutch, Spanish driver, on the contract with Ferrari Driver Academy. She's doing very well. It was her second season there. She did extremely well. Points in every racing weekend except for Monza, when she was hit and crashed out of the race, while she was really battling again for the top 10. And in big fields, because these races have over 40 cars fields. She did extremely well again in the points in Mugello. Also, we had Victoria Blochina, the driver that is at her very first single-seater season. She's straight from karting. She did the Formula 4 in the UAE in the winter to prepare for the Italian Formula 4, and she did very well because she was often in the top 20. She really has to work on qualifying, because if she can qualify a little bit better and start further up the field, she really showed that one of her strongest points are battles, because really in the wheel-to-wheel battles she's really strong. She had some contacts at the beginning of the race, and starting like P32, P33, or even P36 sometimes, and then always getting back into the top 20. So she is really good in battles. And if she can, we know she told us last weekend that she will do again the Italian Formula 4 next year. So good decision to have another season there. She's really young. She's 16-year-old. So she has all the time, and if she can improve the qualifying, I think we will see her also scoring some points next year. But as you mentioned, testing was also a big part of last weekend, because just straight after the weekend on Sunday, on Monday and on Tuesday, we had testing for post-season testing for both the Italian Formula 4 and the Formula Regional European Championship. And in Formula Regional especially, we had Maya Veug moving her first steps in the Formula 3 regional cars. She was in the Prema car. She did quite well. Obviously, it was just first day on the job, so really just to learn the car. She was nothing to see lap times or anything like that. She made no mistakes, consistent running. She was, I would say, very good. On over 30 cars, she was around P20. So I guess for first time in that car, it was a very good day for Maya Veug. But also interestingly, we had Sophia Flörsch. She was quite surprisingly coming to Mugello to test. She was back in single seaters after 2 years, because last she raced in single seaters was in 2020 with the Campos in the FIA Formula 3, and then switched to prototypes in LMP2. She contested the European Le Mans Series and the World Endurance Championship. Also raced 3 times at the 24-hour Le Mans. And so it was quite cool to see Sophia back in a Formula 3 car. She was back with Van Amersfoort Racing, the Dutch team that she had raced before in 2018, when she was racing in the European Formula 3, and famously had her big crash at Macau. And then in 2019, when she was racing in the Formula Regional European Championship, also again with Van Amersfoort, and she was really good there. She was she finished the season in 6th place in the championship. And so it was quite surprisingly, but really cool to see her there. She told us that that her programs are really not set yet for next year, evaluating some stuff. So she had this opportunity to test, and it's important to keep fit. So it's a high downforce car. So still, it was a good opportunity to test, and she was second overall. So it was quite cool to see her being straight back on pace. But also one of the biggest news, unfortunately not very good news here, that we broke yesterday. It was the Formula Regional European Championship cancelling the 4th car for the team, because up until now they had a rule when every team can line up up to 3 cars, because the grid are already very big. Going towards the 40 cars, they have a limit at 39 cars right now. But they're really on the limit, and the races can be a little bit messy because many cars on track. And so they had to limit the numbers on the grids, and they decided that the best way to do that was to cancel the opportunities that female drivers had, because teams if they bring in the car of a female driver, they can add a 4th car. So it was quite a good opportunity, because so far in Formula Regional, all the female drivers that had raced there were in a 4th car from a team. And the most important thing is not that they cannot race in one of the 3 cars right now, because of course they can now. But it's the opportunity to be in a top team, because of course, for example, Hamda Al-Kubaisi was racing in a Prema car. Lena Buller was racing in a race GP car. So really they had the opportunity to get into a top team. And that made all the difference. So it's quite a shame that Formula Regional decided to go this path, because to limit, they could have limited, like in Formula 3 or Formula 2, when they select like 10 or 11 teams. And that wouldn't be the easier thing. Well, it's quite disappointing that they chose to cancel their inclusivity project, and female drivers will not have a 4th car for them next year, which we understand. It's going to be quite a problem for a couple of drivers that were planning to do Formula Regional. So we will follow the developments and report in the coming weeks.
We'll be following the news on here at the Grid Network and RacersBehindTheHelmet.com as well. Now, one of the big things, of course, when it comes to racing series and some of the top female racers, we've been following the National Hot Rod Association here in the United States, and overall, they're down to 2 races left. A couple of last race weekends, and it looks like when it comes to Top Fuel, it might be just slipping out of the reach of Brittany Force. She is still second in the points. However, she is 82 points behind the points leader, Justin Ashley. With 2 races left, the chances are slim for her to get the Top Fuel Championship. Essentially, winner gets 100 points. If you're out in the first round, assuming you qualify in there, you get 20 points. So there's an 80-point difference, plus there are 6 bonus points available. So the big thing for Brittany Force, make sure Justin Ashley doesn't leave the race weekend with more than an 86-point lead. 86-point lead or more, it's over. He's going to be the champion. Even for Ashley to win, to make a serious impact and close up the gap, she's going to need Justin Ashley to go out in that first round, and she has to go out there, get the win, and get as many bonus points. That's the best opportunity for her to try to close that gap to something more manageable in the final round in Pomona. Now, Funny Car, that championship is much closer. 3 drivers are within championship range. However, Alexa DeJoria, she is out of it. She's 7th in the points, just too far back with 2 races left. The big story, though, is in Pro Stock this weekend at the Vegas, Nevada Nationals. Erica Enders, she could potentially go out there and get her 5th championship in Pro Stock. She won already 4 championships, got 2nd place last year. This year, she is already 165 points ahead. So she could easily, this weekend, with a good, strong weekend, clinch the championship and claim her 5th. It'll be interesting because the other 2 series, while they may be in a clinch scenario, Funny Car, that might come down to the last round. For Erica Enders, the job she has done in just dominating Pro Stock, huge effort for her and that team. Really exciting for her. And of course, we're going to be following that this weekend. See if she could go ahead and do that and become a 5-time champion in the National Hot Rod Association. Daniel, I know we're going to be following that race this weekend, the Nevada Nationals. What are some of the big races you're going to be following this weekend?
Well, it's quite a big weekend on 2 sides. One Ferrari Challenge with the World Finals in Imola. We will have some reporters on the field there. So we have Dorian Pan, of course, the European champion of the series, that she's going for the world title. So she qualified P3 today. They have a race later on which is like the penultimate race of the European Championship that she has already won with 2 races in advance. So it doesn't make a lot of difference for her today and tomorrow. But the big difference is going to be Sunday, because they have the World Finals with all the Ferrari Challenge top drivers from the European Championship, from the North American Championship, from the Asian Championship. And of course, Dorian has a big chance to get that worldwide title. But also, it's going to be a quite interesting weekend in France, in the south of France, at the circuit Paul Ricard for the FIA Motorsport Games. It's the 2nd edition of the Motorsport Games. The first one was in 2019. Then, due to the pandemic, it was always postponed, and now finally it's underway. It's a very cool concept, I think, because to have like a Olympics of motorsports, there's a lot of disciplines, a lot of drivers. 75 countries are represented with almost 500 drivers. Disciplines include, for example, TCR, GT Sprint, GT Endurance, Formula 4, karting, esports as well, slalom, drifting, the rally, autocross. There's really a lot of really cool disciplines. And we have some cool female drivers as well, especially in karting. In the junior race, we have Matilda Paz, who also opened the opening ceremony, interestingly. and she is one of the 4 finalists of the FIA Girls on Track program. So quite a promising driver, but also we have a couple in the karting senior, in the karting endurance, for example. Every team has to line up at least one female driver, so that's cool. There we have 4 drivers in each team, and at least one has to be female. We have some teams with 2 female drivers. We have Portugal, for example, that has an all-female team. But also in the karting slalom and in the auto slalom, we have 2 drivers, 1 male and 1 female. So it's going to be pretty interesting. We will be following. Unfortunately, we don't have female drivers in the top 3 disciplines, which are Formula 4, TCR, and GT. That is a bit unfortunate because in 2019 we did have female drivers there. We had Belen Garcia in Formula 4, we had Jessica Bachmann in TCR, and we had Christina Nielsen in GT. So that's quite a shame that we don't have them in back in this edition. But we will be following also the Motorsport Games. Then we have the World Racing League racing at Sebring. And we have the first ever all-female team for round 3 racing. We have Erin Vogel, Lonnie Unser, and Sabre Cook. Sabre Cook that is returning to racing after the back injury. But also, not in the same lineup, but also on the grid, we have Sarah Montgomery, Chloe Chambers, Hannah Grisham, Laura Hayes. So we have also some interesting female drivers in Sebring. 2 8-hour races, one on Sunday and one on Saturday. Then we have World Rally Cross at Barcelona with Clara Andersson, very competitive Swedish driver. We have, as I mentioned before, the NASCAR finale at Grobny, Croatia, with the last race of the female trophy, which has 3 contenders still: Luli Del Castello, Arianna Casoli, and Alina Loibnegger. And then it's quite interesting here at the S5000 series. It is a Australian big single-seater that is racing at Surfers Paradise this weekend, with also the Australian supercars coming back to the one of the most legendary street circuits in the world. And that championship is a support series of the supercars, and they're big single-seaters, big cars, really powerful, really cool to see. And for the first time, we have a female driver, a female entry, Ellie Morrow. She was racing in another supercars support race, and she will switch over to single-seaters for the first time. And so that's going to be a quite interesting race to follow as well. And so these are possibly the most interesting ones that we will be following this weekend.
And of course, we encourage everyone to visit the website racersbehindthehelmet.com for all the latest stories and live coverage as events occur. There it is, Vicky Pereira's first class podium, all the big news, and of course, definitely everyone be sure to follow them on Twitter as well, Racers Behind the Helmet. One of the big things, of course, this race weekend, good amount of racing, getting closer to the end of the season, and then of course we'll be following the news on the off season as well, right here on the Grid Network, and of course on Down Race site, Racers Behind the Helmet. Once again, we want to give a big thank you to our Patreon subscribers for keeping us on the air. You too can invest, help us stay on the air, and get to the track as well. Also, you can do that through Buy Me a Coffee, and be sure to visit one of our primary sponsors, Public.com. Use the referral code GRIDNET. You get some free stock to invest in the stock market. Great way to start investing because you can find your friends, make new friends, use the tools to learn about the stock market and start investing, so you at least have some guidance on how to invest your money. Or GridNet, referral code, their money, and then get started that way. For Dan Zeri at Racers to Girls Behind the Helmet, I'm Joe Sandiego. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time, and enjoy the races. Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, Public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on Public.com. link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GridNet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com.